All right, so we're in the middle of week 6, the start of week 16, the end of week 15. It's a very, very interesting week for each and all of the teams currently still in the playoff hunt. Looking at this week, this could be the week that some teams are eliminated and some teams are out. Currently, there are several teams that are not in the playoffs no matter what happens. The Indians, the Falcons, and the Hawks, and of the the ABL, the Packers are out by half a game. The Colts and Chargers are still officially in, but it would require them winning all of the games out at this point. And of course, for the Jets, Westville, the Dolphins are also on that chopping block. For all these three teams, it could be this game is the difference between winning or losing. If they tie or if they lose, they are eliminated from the playoffs, no doubt. Of course, with some of these games this week, it will be very, very interesting in week 16 to see what happens. As for what happened in week 15, it was pretty well fought out. The Panthers got their second loss in the last 3 weeks. Panthers taking on the Saints only lost by 1, but they did lose, even they were greatly favored in this week. That may mean a lot for the Panthers. That could be the difference between the game, the first seed and the second seed. Currently, as for the playoffs, the Panthers and the Giants both have already clinched their divisions. They're at least going to get, at the minimum, the 4th seed. If you look at the playoff picture, which I don't have up currently, let me see if I can get that up. Make sure I'm correct about this. We don't have any clinches yet, so that's why these things are currently not there. But currently, there is 7 games. 7 games that will occur, which will cause these games to be pretty close. We don't know which team is going to be the first through the 7th. We do know who's going to be in the top 4. Currently the Panthers, the Cardinals, and the Giants have at least or within the top 4 seeds. Panthers have clinched their Panthers being the team that clinched their division. The same thing with the Cardinals and the Giants. The Tigers have not clinched at this point in time. It's going to be difficult to even predict who will actually win that division. Even though the Tigers currently have the lead and are first in that division, it could go either way. Everyone's pretty close. The only one that I think is probably going to have a hard time getting a divisional win would be the Browns. And we'll go get those games against. As of last week, predictions were both all pretty close, and most of the games were not close. The closest game, in fact, was the Panthers game. That was literally the closest game. There was no game that were closer than that. But looking at all these things, this could be a pretty big portion up going on to next week. Currently, if you look at the playoffs as they stand right now, these are the teams that would be in the playoffs in that order. However, the Knights are at a pretty close stage. Actually, I might have that wrong. It might be the Knights that have the lead here. Knights. Knights have an 8-7 record. Versus the Browns, who have so the Browns actually have a slight lead on them right now. Not a very big one. And it's a pretty close. So either of those teams could potentially have the wild card slot. However, of the teams that are teams that are in pink are very likely out of the playoffs. If they tie or lose, they will be out. And the reason why I say tie won't do it is because that only gives them half a game, which means on average their entire season would actually end, if they ended it today, would end in a 5.5, would actually end in a 6-10 record, which is not good enough to really help them out for that portion. So they are on the edge. The Indians are out by a hair, to be honest. Losing last week was not helpful for them. As for the NBL, the Lions and Otters are fighting for the first division to have the first seed in the NBL along with the Beagles. Beagles don't have a clinch yet. That would require if the Otters win out and the Lions lose out, the Beagles wouldn't actually have the first seed. Actually, it wouldn't matter if the Otters got only one win, 2 wins. The Otters would still have would be ahead of them. Unless they're the Eagles have the possibility of getting knocked out of the playoffs only in the only case that the Supermen win this week. If they don't win this week, then it would be an insurance. With the Beagles win and a Superman loss, the Beagles will have clinched the division. As for the ABL South, it's a little tough right now to determine who is in the position to be in the position for first place in the division. The Eighth currently have a win. If they have a win, they are likely to have clinched even with a UNC loss, and That is really all there is to it. UNC and Jets both have a possibility, but with a loss from, with a win from eighth, with the Ethan win, and the UNC and Jets both lose, which I'm not sure it's actually possible, then the Athens will have clinched a division. So there are some things to look at for next season, but no one's clinched a bye yet, and I don't think anyone's going to, at least not for until probably week 17. All right, looking at team rosters, I'm pretty sure no one is injured at this point. I'm gonna make sure I edited it to change it if it is true. I don't think there is anyone. No, there's not. Yeah, there's none. There's none. No one's injured this week, so it's gonna be a pretty. All right. Moving into next week here. Next week is a pretty defining week because this could be the difference between a team clinching a divisional spot and not clinching a divisional spot. And not clinching the divisional spot, or even the wild card. Currently, the NBA West is fighting for possibility of getting first seed. So Browns are still fighting for it. Ravens are still fighting for it. Tigers are still fighting for it. So no one's currently out of that one there. Well, let's take a look at this week. I didn't put the records down here. Probably should have, but Saints and Falcons. Close that up. This is all edited, so I can go ahead and put week 16. Saints and Falcons have a pretty close matchup at this point. The Saints currently have a 9-6 record. Falcons, yeah, they've got a 3-3, 12-1, right? No, there's currently 3-12. So this one's a really interesting game to even predict here because the Falcons have actually been some pretty tough people at this time, and it's not going to be easy to figure out who would win this week, who wouldn't win this week. The Saints, the only thing they can look at right now is getting a wild card slot. So at this point, it's been pretty important the Saints do win this week, but the Falcons don't have anything to fight for, so they don't need to worry about it. At Saturday at 12 o'clock when that game occurs, and that is probably my prediction for Saints to win that game, although it could be either way for that one. And I'm going to go with 1-point prediction. All right, Colts. Colts are a team that has just not done well. They're currently 5-1 and 5-9-1 versus the Ethan, who aren't doing much better, to be honest. They're at 8-7. They're currently leading the division, which is the only benefit they have right now. Winning this week would be phenomenal for the Colts. For the Ethan, they won't be able to it's kind of hard to tell what would happen this week for both these teams. Ethan needs to win. in order to clinch a division, to possibly clinch a division, or at least clinch a playoff spot. As of right now, it's difficult to tell who will win that game. I'm going to predict the Colts to win this game. I think the Colts have a slightly better team overall. But the Athens have a really strong defense versus the Colts, not so strong, more rounded over team. It's going to be a close game for me. I'm going to go for a 2-point prediction for the Lightning, for the Athens and the Colts. Lightning and Panthers game. This is a tough one here. Panthers have lost 2 of their last 3 games, but it's going to be really sad for the Panthers to lose it. Panthers are currently 13-2 versus the Lightning, who are really depressed right now with a 6-9 record. Currently, they are not in the playoffs. No. And to be honest, I'm not sure they will be in the playoffs even if they win this week. I have to go with the Panthers here. I still think they have a better shot at winning that game. I'm going to go how it's 22 prediction difference. I'm going to go with a 7-point prediction in favor for the Panthers. Ours and Tigers. Ours need a win for the sake for them to actually win in order to them to actually have a chance of winning the division. Tigers need to win in order to keep them in the possibility of the playoffs right now. It's gonna be tough for that game to even for it to occur. I would say this game is the game of the week, except it's not quite. If there is a better game. We'll get to that in a little bit though. I have to say this is gonna be close either way. With the Tigers being 10-5 at this point, and the R's being the same record, right? They're at the same record. 10-5. This could easily be the best game of the week. It's just not quite the game I think is going to be the best. I'm going to go with a 3-point prediction here in favor of the Otters. I think the Otters have a slight lead on the Tigers, but it's going to be a close game, by the way. Packers and Browns. Packers are out of the playoffs. They can't make it. The Browns are fighting to stay in the playoff hunt. And the fact is that both these teams have a pretty big advantage here for the Packers have a pretty low overall team. Browns have a pretty low overall team. So both these teams are in a pretty bad situation for this game. This is probably a game that's going to determine whether the Browns stay in the playoffs hunt or not. In my prediction, it could go either way for this game. For the Browns still being in the playoffs, even probably after, if they lose this week, they probably will still have a chance to still be in the playoffs. It's going to be tough, though. I'm going to go with the Browns winning this week. It's a 2-point prediction. I think it's going to be a close game either way. Dragons and Techs. Dragons have disappointed me all season wrong. I've predicted them sometimes, like they lose. And then I don't predict them the other weeks, and they win. So it's kind of like if they're unpredictable. The bad news is they're only 5-10 versus the Techs, who are currently 6-8-1. Right, 6-8-1. Not being in the playoffs, right? 6-1, yeah. So this is a really yes. This is not going to be. I will say, in Dragons, if you lose this week, I'm going to be upset because you guys should have had literally the best team. I'm going to let the Dragons win this week, and I'm going to win a 13-point prediction in favor of the Dragons win next week because I don't think the Techs have what it takes to deal with things. Beagles and the Superman. This is the game of the week. I realized I didn't. Which ones are? I forgot which ones are divisional. Oops. This one's a divisional here. Colts and Ravens are not. Lightning Panthers are not. Ours, no. Packers and Browns, no. And this is the game of the week here, and this is also divisional. I know it's divisional. I'm trying to not do divisionally, but it's hard to find a better game than this one. Yes, I know the Ours and Tigers game, which is not divisional, is probably better. I have to go with this one being the best game because with these two teams facing, this could be the decider, and honestly, it could be also a previous new matchup that will occur again in just a few weeks. Where is it? Week with a 9-5-1. They're both in a pretty close position. I have to call this the game of the week. It's really close to deal with this. It is divisional, but it is the week that is definitely worth the wait for us. I'm going with a 2-point prediction this week in favor of the Superman. I feel like the Superman will be able to come out on top at the end of this game, even if the Beagles do put up a good fight. All right, Lions and Pirates. Lions are looking at a 13-2 record. Pirates are looking at a pretty disgraceful 6-9 record. In my opinion, this is tough. This is a tough game. I have to go with the Lions here. Unfortunately, that probably means if the Lions do win, that the Lions will have clinched the division. No. So if the Lions do win this week, then it doesn't matter what happens with the R's game. I have to go with that being good. I'm going to go with 5-point prediction in favor of the Lions, but I think it's really going to be a really close game. All right, Knights and Giants. This is the other game that I think it could be potentially the game of the week. No, it's not nearly as good, though. The Knights, we have an 8-7 record, and the Giants with a 13-2 record. This is a tough one for the two teams. These teams have done what they needed to do, and honestly, I hope to see both the teams in the playoffs. But it's going to be tough for these teams. I think in order for the Knights to actually make the playoffs, they do have to win this week. I have to go with the Giants here with a 2-point prediction, but I feel like the Knights will need to win this game in order to stay in the playoffs. All right, Bobcats and Cardinals. Cardinals currently have the division with a 10-5 record, right? Yeah. Versus the Bobcats, who do not have it. Yes. They are actually on the edge of an 8-9-1 record. Is that right? 8-9-1? 8-6-1. That was almost right. Had the 9 flipped over. This is a tough game for both these teams. Cardinals, with a win this week, will likely have clinched their their hope to get the playoffs. They're not in the playoffs at this moment in time because of they are in the playoffs. They're not, but they could potentially clinch at least. Actually, I don't know what it's the Tigers and but they could, with a win this week, they could potentially clinch a position for third with a Tigers loss. But it's tough to even know what's going to happen in this game. I have to go with the Bobcats winning this game because of the fact I think they have a stronger defensive mechanic. Not mention that that's what their overall stands for it, but it's a close one for me. I have to go with a 1 point prediction in favor of the Cardinals. Jets and Westville. That's a divisional game, isn't it? No, it's not. I'm sorry. This is a tough one for me. Westville being just a low 6-9 versus the Jets being exactly the same thing, I believe. Yeah, 6-9. Another game that could have potentially been the game of the week. But both these teams just don't have what it takes to win in their divisions. Westville is already out of the playoffs with a loss. They're not out of the playoffs. They're not right now. But with a loss this week, they're out of the playoffs. I noticed that I know it says over here they would still be in the playoffs, and officially they would still be in the playoffs. But it does require a lot of things to occur. I mean, it would require the Bobcats, the Supermen, and the Otters would all have to lose, and they would have, and 3 of these teams would have to win. I just don't see it being feasible for them. I'm gonna go with the Jets win here. I think at the beginning I predict them to be the best team, and I do not think they're gonna be any good. 1 point prediction in favor. I know it's greatly favored for Jets in this case, but I don't know. Angels and Chargers. Yeah. The Angels prediction here have a 6-9 record versus the other team that they're facing, the Chargers, who have a 5-9-1 record. So it's a pretty close record-wise. But here's the deal. Both the Chargers need to win this week. If they don't, they are out of the playoffs for sure, and they need to win. However, I don't see that actually occurring. I'm going to go with the Angels winning this week. I'm going to go with 3-point prediction. Werewolves, Hawks, and Werewolves. Okay, the Hawks have just been really impressive in these last couple of games. Not impressive enough for them to be back into the playoffs, but, losing is the Falcons. Losing is the second worst team, and then not winning many games, I don't think that actually is going to help you out much. Especially if you're facing one of the top teams, 9-5-1. But honestly, they're not that. Werewolves have a great flaw this week. In fact, they have a hard time getting people on the field. So if you look at the last couple of weeks for the Werewolves, let me see if I can find the Werewolves on here. Werewolves have lost against, in their last 4 weeks, they have lost 2 games against really easy teams. They won against the Browns, okay, and then they lost against the Cardinals, okay. So, yeah. But they are there's 1 of 3 in the last couple of games, and these games were games they should have won, and they haven't won those games. However, if you look at the Hawks system, let me see if I can find the Hawks system. Hawks had 2 games they won straight, and then they have been back to their normal selves. Their closest game was against the Dogs last week, and I still think they did pretty good at the end of the game, but not really great for the rest of the game. My prediction here is they still lose. I'm going to go with the Werewolves winning this week. Not that great, but I won't be surprised if the Hawks do win this week. I'm going to go with a 3-point prediction in favor of the Werewolves. It's the Battle of the Dogs. The Dogs versus the Bulldogs. Dog versus Bulldogs. How does that work? Looking at what the Bulldogs have done, since we are in the same place, they've actually done pretty decently. They've actually, of the teams they've played, they have beaten 4 pretty tough teams. They lost to the Lightning, but yeah, okay, whatever. They've beaten in the last 5 games. They have beaten 4 pretty tough teams. They lost to the Lightning. Big deal. Versus the Dogs on the other side of the world. They've gone half and half over the last 5 games. They won against Westfield, they won against the Knights, and they won against Otters. And they've won those pretty big. For the other games, that was not that way. That was not how that worked. I'll go back to week 15, make sure I'm right about this. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that was not right. This game is wrong. It's a win 116 to 109. They've actually have done really well against most of the teams they've played against. And honestly, this really is what makes me feel like the Dogs are going to be able to win this week. Pretty close game. 7-point prediction in favor of the Dogs. I have to say this is going to be a really, and when I say really, I mean extremely close game. Even though my point system doesn't say that. But they have a 6-9 record versus the Bulldogs, who have a 6-9 record. So this game could go potentially either way, but I don't think it will. Ravens and Indians, another game. This is divisional. For me, this game is 100% a game that the Ravens must win or to stay in the playoff hunt. The Indians, it doesn't matter. They're out of the playoffs. But I would say the Indians do have a pretty strong background for the context of winning this game. Where's the Indians? Indians have a really strong defense. There's the Ravens, who have not a strong defense or a strong overall team. They have a better offense than they have. They have a better offense than the Indians, but their defense it's terrible versus the Indians. I have to go with the Indians winning this week, even though I'm pretty sure the Ravens will need to win this game or will win this game. 2-point prediction. UNC and the Dolphins, it's another divisional game this week. UNC, who has a current record of 6-9 versus the Dolphins 6-9-1, so it's actually a pretty close matchup between these two teams. But in my opinion, this is going to be the game that decides everything. Who is the better team and who's not. But I will say these two teams, I believe, have faced off before. Let me see if I can find that. It is the AF. It was the AFC. Which one was it? The AFC South. is. Um, just looking at the last couple games, the Dolphins had it really hard the last couple games. I mean, look at this. They have only been one win in the last 8 games. Versus the Jets, who have gotten 3 wins in the last 7 games. So, in the last 8 games. So, the Jets look like a stronger team at this point. Now, the Jets and Dolphins did play, and the Dolphins did win, so that might give it a little bit of help there. But in that game, it was a very tough first quarter, and then everything was just one-sided for the Dolphins. I have to say this is going to be a really interesting matchup, and the prediction is that they would win the rest of the games this season. I'm looking at the wrong one anyways. That's the Jets. Oh, that's the Jets. No. Wait, what? Houston Dolphins? I have something wrong here. Because I have the Jets playing a different team. I have something wrong with the matchup. Yeah, it's UNC and the Dolphins. Okay, I messed up there. Okay, I was looking at the wrong team. Yeah, so UNC and the Dolphins. Looking back at the UNC, his first game against the Dolphins, if they actually did play them a previous time. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, and it was a pretty close game for both the teams. UNC did win in the end, and I think this will be it. I would predict here that the Jets. So I actually was right about the thing about it being good. It was really close in the first quarter, then it was pretty close for almost the entire game. It was the fourth quarter where the UNC took over. I would say that in this game it's going to be a really tough game, and I'm going to predict the UNC wins this one as well. A 3-point prediction. It would be interesting to see what happens next week. So the Dolphins do need to win in order to stay in the playoff hunt. But UNC, I think, has a better chance in this one. Thank you guys for watching Sports Hour for Week 16. And we'll see you guys next week. And who knows who will be in the playoffs as of next week.